Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. So let us start the discussion for this lab. So how are the other classes going? Going fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So in the ADSP course, Advanced Signal Processing and Analysis course, what's happening now?
Convolution.
Oh, very good. Okay, so convolution is discussed. Okay, good. So convolution is discussed and systems are introduced, I think, right? So then convolution and then impulse response is also discussed. So anyway, samples in unit sequence response are. So there was a discussion about the convolution for linear systems, I think, right? So now in this lab, essentially we will be doing convolution with given two signals. We will also see how to find impulse response for the systems. So there may be whether we call it as impulse signal or as a unit sample signal. So let us try to see how to find out the response of the system given that unit sample response or impulse response. So let's try to understand a few things on how we can do those things and let us also see when we do in program, especially in MATLAB. So what are the limitations that you may have or what are the things that you may need to take care little more carefully. So before I start, you have, if you have any questions or want to give little more details on what's happening in the course, you can give. So what else are being discussed so far in the Advanced Signal Processing course? Other than convolution? Yeah, you can tell, Ramesh. Sriram?
Yes, sir. Today exponential signals were started, sir.
Oh, very good.
The property of LTI systems, like the fidelity, basically.
Okay, good. So this lab sheet I am sharing now. Today's lab sheet essentially is there is a good overlap this time. So with the content that's going in the course and what we are trying to do. So we will also be discussing on the LTI systems and some properties so of the LTI systems, though we are not essentially working directly discussing on the properties in this lab sheet. So some understanding of the properties is required. So to especially get the pre-lab exercises done. So pre-lab exercises are those which are a kind of understanding kind of questions. By solving them, you will gain a little bit more understanding on using these LTI systems. And this can be done by your usual way of problem solving itself. So need not necessarily be, there may be exercises that you need to do for pre-lab. Pre-lab is the content that you should know or understand for doing this lab. Okay, so what's an LTI system? Let me ask a couple of questions before we move on and discuss. So what is LTI system? Yeah, quickly answer because I have I wish to finish this possibly by 3:30.
Linear time invariant system, sir.
Okay. So what's specialty about them?
Output of summation of inputs will be summation of respect to outputs.
Okay, fine, that's okay. So what advantage does they have?
Shift invariant, sir.
Okay. So what? you need to tell in terms of what advantage they give. You are telling the properties of those systems. Okay. So any of other students also can answer.
So when we assume a system to be linear and time invariant, it makes the overall analysis simple, and we have a lot of operations that are made for linear systems, which enables us to perform more operations and better and better.
Yeah, what operations? Specific.
Like convolution, sir.
Okay.
Uh,
See, why do we want convolution at all? You are directly jumping to the convolution. So let us see that we have a linear and time invariant system. Okay, we have a system first of all. Okay, the question is now why this system, whatever we have here. So we would like to be linear and time invariant.
Sir, because I think linear systems are follow superposition homogeneity, so which makes them
Okay.
the combination of multiple input signals to study the combination of multiple input signals when they are passed through that system. It makes their study simple because the output would be a scaled version of those individual outputs.
Okay, fine. There is a point. What you are trying to say is for a linear invariant systems, it is easy to analyze outputs for different inputs. That's what you're trying to convey, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's one point. But can some of the student or the same student be more specific?
Sir, just to take a point from what Shriram just said, any input can be broken down into infinite number of impulses. So the LTI system allows us to add the respective impulse response, wherein where the input has been broken down into X number of impulses, we can just add the outputs and hence understand what the system output is going to be for that particular input.
Okay, so different inputs, that's what it was initially mentioned. So now what you are telling is any input can be broken down to a to shifted versions of several impulses and
infinite
number of impulses. Okay, so and you can use that, you can take the advantage of that in analyzing the output or analyzing the system response for any input. That's what you are saying, right? So what you are saying is x of n can be represented in terms of a sequence of delta functions. So in minus. So what you are saying is you can represent in terms of impulses, shifted impulses, and this will help us to analyze the response of the system. Fine, good. So now I see the point. So I can express x of n in this way, and this in turn helps to analyze the system response. Okay, for any of the if it is an LTI system, for any of the inputs. Fine. So now tell me. So where does the convolution come into picture? So you can starting from simple to analyze the response of different inputs to
Sir, we can
for LTI systems. Okay, any you can analyze output or the response of any input. Okay, that's what you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so now tell me, so where does the convolution come into picture?
Sir?
Yeah.
So in convolution, actually, I've read that there are two sides. One is from the when we view from the input side, and one is from when we view from the output side.
Right.
So from the input side, we see that each input, as Major explained, Major sir, that each input can be broken into impulses, and the summation of the responses for those impulses added, and we get the output. That is from the input side. And from the
Okay.
output side, we see that for each output point, what is
Yeah.
the contribution of each input point? What inputs contribute to that particular point? So
Okay.
when we view that from that side, so this is what convolution entails.
Okay. So what you are trying to say is, say now bring in. So to get the convolution, what do you need? So as the before convolution, what you need for analysis of the system? See, if I want to analyze a system, okay, before even introducing convolution, what is that I need?
System response.
System response, okay, or impulse response. Okay, you can also call as system response. So that is represented as H of n. Okay. So now this, what is that? It is called in ADSP course. It's
Unit sample response, sir.
unit sample response.
Impulse response.
Impulse response, sir, is calling, or unit sample response, or
Sir, he is calling it a unit sample sequence actually.
okay, okay, fine. Unit sample sequence. Okay, fine. So it's okay. So you can call in either name. So for ease of nomenclature, we call impulse response itself. Okay, you can call it as, for consistency, if you want, unit sample sequence or unit sample response. Okay, so essentially when you give input as delta n, okay, unit sample sequence is this. Okay, I think unit sample response will be this. Just check. So
Yes, sir, I stand corrected. Sorry.
so this is the unit sample sequence is delta n. Then the response what you get from that delta n is unit sample response. Okay, now the question is, so you can find delta n, and the output for this delta n for this LTA system is H of n, correct? Okay, so now the question is, how does this help? You just mentioned in verbally before. So now let us bring in the expression for that. So y of n you can write as given now H of n, unit sample response. Okay, what you can do now, y of n equal to what? Can one of,
Sigma
yeah,
and into
x of k, h of n minus k,
Oh,
k equal to minus infinity infinity. See, please note that this can be right for any system or only for a particular class of system that we have considered now.
So I think impulse response or unit sample response only exists for LTS systems.
Okay. See, yeah, true. So unit sample response, in terms of H of n, you see only for the LTA systems, and then writing output essentially through convolution is very strictly for LTA systems. Okay, even if it is not a LTA system, you can give input always a delta function and see some output H of n or H of something. So that doesn't require LTA system and so on. But that will not help you to find out the output for any arbitrary input. Okay, so that means it will not be shift invariant or time invariant. It will not be linear. So if the system is not linear and time invariant, but still you can always give a arbitrary delta function, delta n as input, and get some output. Fine. Okay. So now we essentially assume that, but in real situations, we may not have always the system specified by the impulse response. Okay. Sometimes the system is specified by difference equation. Hope you know that, right? So for example, if I have a differentiator system that in continuous time, so I say that y of t is equal to dx by dt, right? So if y of t may be equal to dx by dt, what is the equivalent discrete system for that? Can one of you tell?
X of n minus x of n.
Right. So d by dt of d by x of t. So this can be a system, and the equivalent discrete system, as you said, is x of n minus x of n minus 1 or x of n. We can define discrete system in different ways. So for some causality or whatever, so we can define in this way. Okay, x of n minus x of n minus 1. And this is a discrete system equivalent to this. Assume that. So now given this, I don't have impulse response directly here, but still I will be able to find the impulse response. Am I correct or not? So one of you can quickly give what is the impulse response in this case? How do I find, or what is the impulse response in this case?
Del n minus 1.
Right. So how do you get this? What is the way to write this?
By putting the value of xn to be del.
Right. And then you can replace y by h to write it as h of n. Okay. Right. So, and then this is the impulse response or unit sample response in this case. Right. But there may be some systems with feedback. Okay. Or recursive systems that you can call. Okay. Or I may, the difference equation may have a y of n term on the other side as well. Okay, so this is another system. So this kind of systems, okay, can also be LTI. Okay, but do you know what is the condition for this kind of systems with different given by this kind of difference equations being LTI? Any thoughts on this?
X of n has to be eigenfunction or something.
Okay. Any other things? Any other answers? Okay, see, usually to satisfy linearity condition. There are, see, if someone gives you y of n equal to x of n plus 2. Okay, is the system linear? If someone asks, what will you tell?
No, sir.
Non-linear.
Okay, why?
Sir, it doesn't follow superposition.
Yeah. So strictly, even for 0 x of n, that means even if x of n, before starting x of n itself, you may have an output as equal to 2. Is it not? So y of minus 1 is also, right? So if x of n starts only from 0. So, and this is also doesn't hold the superposition. So this system has no initial rest conditions. Okay. So if for a system to be linear, one constraint or one condition that you can consider to be required is 0 initial conditions. Unless you have this, okay, the system is not LTA. If it is not LTA, you can't find the impulse response, so you can't write h of n. Okay, so if this is not LTA, even though different system describing by different equations is a more generic term than describing by impulse response. Hope you got that. So this is more generic. Okay, and then if you want to constrain to LTI, okay, then we assume that the 0 initial conditions are assumed, okay, are given. If we assume 0 initial conditions, what does it mean? Y of n equal to 0 for all n less than 0. Okay, that's what we consider, say, initial, if we start from n equal to 0. Okay, we are assuming that we are starting from n equal to 0. 0 initial conditions means y of n equal to 0 for all n less than 0, right? So now given that, say, assume that instead of x of n, I may put a here. Okay, so just to have a better final results, okay, in terms of the system response. So now if I ask you to find out the impulse response of the system, any of you know how do we find it? So the system given is y of n is equal to y of n minus 1, okay, plus a times x of n. Okay, and then 0 initial conditions, that is y of n equal to 0 for all n less than 0. Okay, this is given. Find, the question is find impulse response. Okay, because this is an LTI system, I can ask you to find impulse response or unit sample response. Okay, so the question is, how do you find it? Anybody have an answer?
Usually place n equal to 0 and then find.
Okay. So x of n, assume that I want to give x of n also, so that actually it becomes easy. Delta n, to make the thing simple. Anyway, impulse response I asked, right? So you can put x of n equal to delta n for impulse response, for finding impulse response. Okay. Yeah. Okay, then what did you say? Somebody has told something, right? X of n equal to delta n I have put. Then what should we do?
Laplace or jet transform.
Yeah. So one way is, say you apply jet transform. Apply either jet transform, okay, or if you don't know jet transform, even DTFT, discrete time Fourier transform, okay, or some transform. Okay, bring to some transform domain. Take to some transform domain. Okay, that we'll do next. Is there any other way? Other than directly going to the transform domain? Can we do directly in the time domain now?
Yes, sir. We can continuously put n is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Okay.
from that we can generate a series for Hn.
Okay, so y of 0, if we see, it is 1. So A is the answer. A, let us assume that A is also mod A is less than 1. Okay, just for simplicity. And then y of 1, if we see, it is what?
Y of 0 plus A.
So y of 0 plus, okay, y of 0 plus 0 plus A times x of n again, x of 1, right? So what is x of 1?
0.
X of 1. What is the answer?
So y of 1 is also A.
Yeah, okay. And then y of 2?
Then it would be also A, I think. No, wait. Yeah, it would also be A, sir.
It's also A. So what are we getting as y of n?
DC value, sir. As a constant value, sir.
So y of n equal to constant value we are getting. Okay. So where should I put A then? So instead of here, if we put A here, A into y of n minus 1?
No, sir. Instead of Y, we should use H, I think.
Yeah.
Because
So because we are using impulse response. Correct. Good. But finally, what do we write h of n as? H of n equal to A into U of n. Should
UN.
yes or not?
U of n.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Because actually it starts from n equal to 0, we write like this. And A is less than 1. This is fine. So if I write in fact, I can anyway modify this. So instead of this, if I give y of n equal to, okay, A times y of n minus 1, okay, plus x of n. Okay, then in that case, what do you think will happen?
Exponential, sir, I think.
Yeah, it will become A power n, U of n will come. Okay, so I anyway thought of this, but I gave this, it's okay. So essentially you can find one way is to find in time domain directly by using the difference equation and recursively applying it. Okay, that's one way of doing. The other way is what? You can take to transform domain. Okay, so all are familiar with jet transforms, I hope, right? So even though you might have not revised now, hope you are familiar. We are more comfortable with jet transforms or discrete time Fourier transforms. Should we write one here?
Transform.
Jet transform is
Jet.
better. Okay. So y of jet. What should I write here?
Z power minus 1. Z
Y of jet plus
plus
A
A
times
into
x
x
of
of Z.
Okay, so then what should I do now to find out h of jet?
Y of z by x of z.
Yeah, y of jet by x of jet, I write. See, equation now, whichever we have here, these are referred to as quotients of difference equation. Okay, so whichever you are showing here, so this one, and this one. So here quotients of difference equation, if I see, A is quotient of x of n and 1 are the quotients of y of n. These quotients of difference equation, how are they turning out now in this h of z? If I write now h of z, what is this? Y of z by x of z.
A by 1
So
minus
it's
Z
a
inverse.
by 1 minus z inverse. Right? Fine, good. So in this quotients of previously quotients, if you see, there for the different same quotients are occurring here as quotients of the polynomials, numerator and denominator polynomials. If we write y of z as a numerator polynomial, okay, and x of z as a denominator polynomial, okay, so what are we getting here? Z inverse, polynomials in Z inverse instead of Z, just to write, because anyway when we take Z inverse may come more times because we come okay. So the quotients of this numerator and denominator polynomial are nothing but the quotients of the difference equation. Please make a note of it. Why I am discussing about this? Anyone knows?
To create parallel cascade system.
Because to find why I am discussing this, any idea?
Parallel cascading systems.
No, not for that. See, now if I want to get a h of z or h of n from this, what will I do? What will I do?
Inverse Z transform.
What inverse Z transform? So I just write capital Z inverse. Okay, just for, or how do I write? Okay, Z inverse of. Okay, Z inverse of this. Okay, Z inverse of I am writing. Okay, so Z inverse of h of z is h of n, right? So what is that? Here only a power and u of n. See, for finding inverse z, h of z, if there is any function in MATLAB, okay, so that will be able to find impulse response here. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
For that function, what are the inputs I need to give? If there is a function that finds the inverse, the impulse response after writing in h of z and using the quotients of polynomial, say this is essentially represented by the numerator a0, okay, a1, and so on. Numerator polynomial quotients and denominator b0, okay, b1, and so on. Okay, so if the numerator and denominator polynomials through their quotients, okay, and give them to the function, the whole h of z function is given. Yes or no? And that MATLAB function, if I have for that, this only needs numerator and denominator polynomial quotients to be given for finding impulse response. Yes? Any MATLAB function computing H inverse needs what?
Coefficients.
Inverse, yeah, needs quotients. Okay, of numerator polynomial and denominator polynomial. In other words, this needs, so you need not even compute the whole thing. You know that it's in any way LTI system. Needs quotients of either numerator and denominator polynomials or quotients of difference equation. In fact, both are same. Okay, you can directly pick the quotients of x and y from here and give it to the MATLAB function. Okay, so this a0 and b0, b1, a1, all those things you can construct directly from here. Yes or no? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that's that is how some of the MATLAB functions will compute. There is a function called imz, okay, that essentially does. by using the inverse Z transform. Okay, there is another function called filter. That filter function, what it does, it may not do in frequency domain, but it may do in time domain. But still it needs the numerator and denominator polynomial coefficients. Right? See, especially if you have, where you have seen here, right? See here in this case, what are the coefficients of numerator polynomial? In this function, in this system, what are the numerator polynomial coefficients representing to?
1 minus
1.
Yeah, 1 and -1. These are nothing but, in fact, the impulse response is directly given by here. Okay, but the usually if this is not the impulse response, then what we do, so if this is the impulse response, and if you want to find the output of the system to arbitrary input, what do we do? So this is what for this system as impulse response. Now I give x of n as, okay, something else. Assume that I might have given x of n as, okay, delta n plus delta n plus 1, n minus 1, okay, minus 2 times delta n minus 2 or something. Okay, assume that this is what I have given as x of n. For this, now I want the output y of n. In that case, what do I do? The system is probably, this is the difference equation representing the system, fine. Okay, but if I have the impulse response like this already in my hand, the other way of finding the output is through convolution operation, right? See, one way of finding the output is directly using the difference equation, okay, for the given input. The other way of finding the output is find the impulse response either in the Z domain or from the other means, and then use that impulse response through convolution to find the output. Right? Is this clear? What I have told is to find the output, you can use either convolution, okay, or directly the difference equations once you have. Okay, for finding impulse response, you can use the inverse Z transform, and that requires the coefficients of the either difference equation or the Z transform polynomials, numerator and denominator polynomials. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now finding convolution, while finding convolution, so let us see few things. Usually what we do, you have a signal x of n and you have a signal h of n. Okay, so assume that 1, -1, 2, or 0, 1, assume that this is the x of n. And then h of n is given by, I am just giving some sequence. Okay, x of n one sequence and the other sequence as h of n. If I give like this, is it enough? Or any other information do you need to find out the convolution or to show them the convolution result? So if I this is the signal or this is the sequence, okay, and this is the unit sample response or impulse response, okay, of a system. So for finding the output for this sequence, what else information do you need?
X of
Zero
0.
position.
Yeah.
Zero position.
Yeah, you need the location where this sequence is starting. For example, if it is x of n, where the impulse response has its origin. Okay, so if I say that these are the 0 positions, okay, then you can find out the convolution. Not only finding the convolution, you can also represent the output with reference to the time axis, right? So see, if I say that these are the 0 positions represented by arrows. Now, if I find the convolution output, hope you all know how to find the convolution, right? So hope you know the convolution. I'm not discussing that. So assume that you will be able to find the convolution. What is the length of convolution sum? So if you find the convolution, y of n will be of sequence of what length? What non-zero, how many non-zero samples in it?
Length of
9.
xn plus length of h minus 1.
Yeah, so if this is n1, which is equal to here, is equal to length of this sequence is 5. Okay, so length of this sequence is 3. Then this one length of this is n1 plus n2 minus 1. That is equal to 7 here.
7.
Right. So the sequence here, once you find the convolution, it will have 7 elements. Okay. So now the question is, where will be the 0 for this 7 sequence with these 7 elements?
The third position, sir.
In the third position. Okay. So essentially what you can do is, one way is you can, while finding, usually you have the signal if you consider this as the sequence, okay, h of n, right? And if you have the sequence, this as this is h of n, and x of n also you can plot anyway. So how do you locate that? How did you tell that it is third sequence, third location? Can you give some information on that?
Sir, what I did was I found out the left extreme, what would be the left extreme index, and then from that I calculated the 0 index.
Right. So, yeah. So what you can do is, anyway, what we are doing, we flip this, okay, and slide on this, okay, and then start to see where the non-zero location is. So what did? You looked at the left index here.
Yes, sir. The of the sequences, the left index is -1, sir.
Right.
So I added them, so the end result would be -2. So that would be the first element of the output.
Right.
That would be the index of the output, first index.
Correct.
So from that I calculate.
Right. So when we flip, what will happen? Whatever you have here, will see this, whatever you have on the left side, in this side, will come this side, right? And the number of non-zero elements start coming from, okay, this index plus this index in some sense. Okay. So that's what happens. So the number of non-zero elements comes from whenever this zero takes, so when this 0 overlaps with here, okay, so what will happen? -1 here, but 0 is n equal to -1 here. So the say when this 0 and this 0 overlaps, you start getting the negative values, correct? So how do you exactly do this convolution? Where does the y of n start from non-zero?
-2.
Yeah, it starts from -2. So how to look at this is, you can see either the expression, or you can assume that this is n now after you bring this. Say let us flip, and this is now n. This will be anywhere on this. Okay, and then here is -1 after flipping, and this will come at +1. Okay, and then this is the -1 after flipping. This is after flip. So this is -k, you can consider. Okay, h of -k. Now what we do, we position this at different locations. So when you position this at -2 itself, what will happen if n equal to -2? Okay, if you bring this n equal to -2 here, then there is a non-zero overlap. First time non-zero overlap is occurring. 1 into -1, which is -1. Okay, so this is graphically looking at, but algorithmically telling, or by in general, if you want to convey, as he mentioned, so we can just add the say if here is -1, here also starts from -1, you can add these two, then the leftmost sequence will be -2, right? For in y of n. Y of n is non-zero or starts from -2. Fine, is this fine? So this is how you can calculate from where it is non-zero, and from there you can look at the location in this. Okay, so which is the zero location for y of n. See, unless you locate the zero location for y of n, the convolution sum is not complete, because when you sketch it, you should convey clearly where it is 0, where it is 1, where it is -1, where it is -1, where it is -2, and so on, or 1, 2, and so on, right? So hope this you will be able to do, and you are supposed to plot for each of the sequences where the zero location is in the convolution sum as well. One more thing before we move on to the lab sheet is, do you know about correlation? Have you heard any time about correlation?
Yes.
Yeah, what is the difference between convolution and correlation?
Correlation basically gives the similarity between two sequences.
Okay, so correlation, as he mentioned, it gives the similarity between two sequences. If I want to find a pattern which is like this, okay, so what I can do, I can keep like positioning this pattern, okay, everywhere, whatever, same pattern everywhere, okay, and try to see where this pattern matches very well with respect to this signal, in this signal. Okay, so this can be some x of n, and this can be some y of n. So correlation, if I do between x of n and y of n, or if I consider this as to have a similar notation as convolution, this if I consider as h of n, this I consider it as x of n. What essentially I am doing is I am positioning this h of n, okay, at different positions, okay, and trying to see where it matches very well, right? So where does the match will be higher? Any suggestions on that? What is the what does it give finally? If I consider now y of n as defined, or c of n I define,
It basically give the percentage of similarity, sir.
it gives the percentage of similarity, fine. But exactly to give the similarity, do you suggest me to do anything else? I keep
So what correlation does is, it shifts the target sequence toward the input sequence, and
Right.
multiplies the respective elements and adds them and puts them in the respective index.
Right.
And the index with the highest value would be the point at which the signal is occurring. Most similar.
That's fine. That I got. That's clear from our discussion now. So now the question is, similarity usually will be higher if the two things are same, and that is what is being identified or to be identified by correlation. But to be more clear or specific, for correlation to accomplish a task, it is better to normalize h of n, okay, and then x of n. Okay, normalize them. If we normalize, what happens? Both x of n and h of n will be, say, unit sequences in some sense, or unit normal with unit norm sequences. So in that case, what happens? The correlation, we can define it as, so cross correlation, say normalized cross correlation. What is the benefit in this? So what is the difference between, say, if I define this is also cross correlation, because we are finding correlation between two different sequences. If I find between two same sequences, it is referred to as auto. Okay, if I find between two different sequences, it is referred to as cross. Okay, so this is cross correlation. Is this clear? And this is normalized cross correlation, I'm saying. So if I represent this as x, so I can have a different, so if you are using this for something else, you can use simply circle. Okay, x of n circle with h of n. Okay, so or x circle with h of n, h. Okay, so if you are using this for correlation, so then what is normalized cross correlation? Why normalized cross correlation may be better?
Okay, all the best సార్ చెప్తాడు ఏ విషయం అనేది అని చెప్పాను.
Yeah. So what is the advantage of normalized cross correlation or correlation? Anybody can tell?
Maybe, sir, it limits the range of values that it can attain.
Right. It limits and any other things. It limits is true. So essentially what we have done is, so I am just writing x hat, okay, by where x hat is equal to, implies x hat of n is equal to x of n. I'm just multiplying by norm of whole sequence x of n. Okay, so this norm of x I'm writing, okay. So this is a loose notation, but I hope you understand. I just take whole thing and divide by root of square of all elements. Okay, in x. Similarly, I do for h. What do you think is advantage of normalized cross correlation compared to correlation? Say, assume that, see, these things, especially understanding signals, is very easy if you consider in terms of vectors. Okay, so if we consider, say, x as a vector, 1, 2, 3, 5, or whatever, so or even the simpler vector 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then y is another vector. So let this be 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, or HB 1, 1, 1, 1. This is one possibility. The H can be, say, 1, 2. Can be another possibility. Okay, so assume that and there is other possibilities. H is 100, okay, and 200, or something like that, or H is 101. See, if I start finding correlation, what happens? This, when the magnitudes are different, okay, so I can't expect exactly the peak for similar pattern. Okay, so I may get slightly a different location as well. See, 1, 2 here, 1, 2 here are matching exactly. Okay, but this doesn't mean that I see, even if just to have a, if I put 200, okay, this may be much higher than 1, 2 multiplying here. Okay, so but normalized cross correlation may yield roughly same values here. That's one thing. Even otherwise also, having, say, some 50 and 60 here may give higher values than correlating with 1 and 2. Okay, for this with the signal x, is it not? So the effect of having similarity is being not unique when you have actually the magnitudes different. Okay, and the magnitude of signals also affected. For example, if there is a signal, if the signal has suddenly a spike here, okay, even though it's not, it's a pure the pattern wise, if it is different from the pattern I am looking at, I may have a higher value here. Is it not? That can happen in direct cross correlation or correlation. In normalized cross correlation, that will not happen. Okay, so you will be able to get peak exactly for the same signal. Okay, so I just leave it here on the correlation. But essentially, how do you relate correlation and convolution before we close on this?
So in correlation, we flip one signal and perform convolution.
No, so the correlation is same as. So this correlation can be written in different ways. Correlation can be different, right? Written in different ways. One way of writing it is what I have written here. Can one of you tell any other way of writing correlation? Any other way of expressing correlation between x of k and or x of n and h of n?
X of k plus h of n plus k.
Yeah, so you can also write as h of n plus k. Now, if you see with the previous signal, the change is minus sign to plus sign. So this is equivalent to convolving x of n, okay, and h of what?
Minus.
Right, h of minus n. So essentially, both are important, okay, in their respective applications, correlation and convolution. Okay, and one can be found by flipping one of the signal. Okay, and they have different meaning. So convolution is for systems, especially for finding response of a system, whereas correlation is for finding similarity. Especially it's useful in say finding template matching or many inference tasks. Okay, fine. Also, we will I will stop here. Any questions? So I will quickly now move on and go through the lab sheet. If you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I will quickly go through once and then I will leave the time to you to perform the experiments or to start the simulations on this lab.
Sir,
Yeah, ask.
so will you provide answers for lab sheet, sir?
Okay.
After the time.
Yeah, right. Once you solve, probably I think most of the I hope that so among you, couple of things will be like full solutions. One of you or couple of you will be giving. So in case if there are some doubts or questions, we will also try to clarify you. In sense, we don't give a answer sheet kind of thing. But if there are any things which are not very clear, we will discuss. So what I request our TAs is to evaluate quickly, and in 1 week time, let us, before they go to the next week, let us give the lab sheet that is evaluated the previous lab sheet. Also try to follow at least 1 week plus or minus timelines in evaluating. So while evaluating, they will mention if you have done any mistakes. Also that will clarify.
Okay, sir.
Right. So the first question is on the essentially on the convolution. And then second question is finding correlation and cross correlation between the same signals, auto and cross correlations, but using the command of convolution. So you can, I think, easily do. So in MATLAB, doing convolution is very simple. You get a sequence by command simply. And the third question is on writing the exponential sequences, which I think you people have recently have studied in the class as well. So you can plot them. Previous lab itself, you might have started looking at these sequences. Now it's multiplication of two sequences. So element wise product of vectors you can do, or sequences you can do here. Okay, and then finding solution. You can find the solution by different ways. One is through filtering command. This filtering command, as I said, so if you filter command not necessarily finds impulse response, it finds the response of a system. Okay, so through convolution operation, essentially you have the impulse response obtained or using directly the convolution between the impulse response and the x of n through filter command. So you can do this. So directly you can give x of n signal, and then this system is usually described in MATLAB command by coefficients only. Okay, let it be discrete difference equation coefficients, or let it be x the polynomial numerator and denominator polynomial coefficients. But essentially we define or give any of the systems in MATLAB through difference equations, set of equations for numerator and denominator kind of. Okay. And this is just the coefficients are complex here. So you need to take care of plotting and so on, especially when there are complex numbers. So you need to take magnitude or real and imaginary terms separately and so on. Such things you need to take care. So in some cases, impulse response means you know what to do, right? So not explicitly x of n may be given. Also same is the case even here. So in all these three, we assume that there are initial conditions are from rest or zero initial conditions. So you have here a big difference equation. Even here, what you need to give for as a system is the polynomial coefficients, numerator and denominator in h of z if you find, or x and y coefficients, difference equation coefficients in x and y. So you need to understand the format of this filter command, z command, or impulse command, what the commands that you will be using for finding the filter responses, either impulse response or the filter like the response of a system. Okay, and use them. That's only the thing that you need to learn here. And you need to understand what they are doing little more by understanding the help there, and also varying little bit on the initial conditions, or some you can see if what happens if you change some of these coefficients, okay, and so on. how are they behaving and so on. So you can also see on the convolution, so a little bit on, say if you change the zero position, is it correctly plotting and so on. So your commands that you write should be more generic, not too much specific. So you should not put hard code that, so you start from 5th position as -5, so you put the zero position at 6th position and so on. And try to write a more generic approach to find the zero position in output when you find the convolution. So like that, it's better to write, or it's such things are more encouraged. So this is the lab sheet to be done for this week. Any questions on this?
Sir, in the first question, would the zero position of the signal be given in a generic way or in a fixed way?
No, here it may not be given in a generic way, but even if it is given in generic way, once you represent the signal, then you will be able to know, right? So what is the, where is zero position and so on, right? So based on that, you write a generic expression. So n1, like you start from -1. So what is the minimum here? So based on that, you know whether it is less than 0 or not, right? So such things you use. So they may not give in a quite while giving this only that one that is given. Okay, how you write in your code is up to you.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I also wanted to ask one more thing, that in the last lab you mentioned that if we did everything exactly as it is, we would get about 9 out of 10. Lab sheet, and 1 mark would be for the exploration part.
Right.
So I was hoping or something like that, that if we could get some sort of feedback from the lab sheets we have submitted, so that we can kind of get an idea of what we should explore.
Good. That's expected. So I hope that our submitted. I think I heard that not all have submitted, but I urge all others to submit. So mostly in this week they will complete the evaluation and try to give you before the next lab sheet or by the next week. So we assume that there is 1 week for you to complete and 1 week for them to evaluate. So that's the timeline we try to follow. And anyway, we won't postpone to the end for evaluation and giving you feedback.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Suppose if we are not actually using some values or making a generic code, so the code length may vary. So for like, is it like that we have to like write code in short lines, or we can explore and write it in longer versions so that many other manipulations can also be done?
Right. See, if you really want to take care few other things which are, many things you need not take care, but which you can easily envisage. All the sequences won't start from 0, that we know, right? So some sequences maybe start from negative values, some from 0, some from positive values. So these are the very generic things that may happen in a sequence. So if you take care of them, that's good enough mostly. So you need not consider that, say, some sequences may go from -infinity to infinity. Some sequences may not go. So such things is, we can probably consider as separate, in the sense that, say, for example, U of n and the convolution between such things is not directly what you are doing. You are assuming that finite sequences here and trying to do convolution here. So what I would suggest is some things which will make easy or more generalization around what you are doing is good enough. No need to go for too many options, but at the same time try to explore few things. If you do also, it's good. So anyway, it's appreciated.
And so one more thing was that when I was creating the the report, if I were to give a command for input, suppose I want to give an input from the user, I don't think it was supported in that. So how do I go about that? Can you suggest something?
No. Can you repeat? I think Survardhan or someone.
Sir, I got it, sir. Okay. So for that situation, you have to write that some set of sample, what is given in your lab sheet, or what is the assumption you are taking. Just put it that values. That's enough. So here it is that given sequences are the 2 sequences. So just you have to define these sequences.
No, sir. If I wanted to make a generic, like if I want to take an input from the user about the sequence, like I want to take an sequence
So
from the.
that is not possible. That is the only possible if you are making that one in the .m file only. If you are making that one at that .mlx file, it won't give that supporting from user. It won't take the feeding from user. You have to give the predefined values only.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Fine. So any other questions? Otherwise, I will leave now. Yeah. Thank you then. So Suravardhan, I will make co-host, host, and I'm leaving. You can go ahead, and if you have any doubts or questions, you can talk to me again.
Shall I keep it that 7 days duration for this one or 10 days?
Yeah, you can keep from now on. 7 days is good enough. So measures can have a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on say 3 days more, we can give for them.
Yeah, sure.
Till third or fourth lab sheet. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And sir,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that about the TA duty that I was assigned one, but I had to turn it down because it was clashing with this ADSP class laboratory. So I sent the mail and they also approved of it. So today I think we received a mail about the duties and I have not been allocated anything. So would that cause any problems?
No, nothing. Actually, see, departmental activities you have put, right? So we will see later. Actually, departmental activities means conducting any MS PhD interviews or even some online things are now going on, right? So we will see actually in what way you can help the department. Committee meetings will you help her? We will see that those aspects. Yeah, if you are given some responsibility and not doing, then only things will affect. Otherwise, won't affect.
No, sir. Our responsibility was given, but I had to turn it off because it was clashing with my class.
That's fine. They only changed, right? So now from that course to departmental activity, correct?
Okay. No, sir. They did not change anything. They just approved that. Okay, fine. We will look for something else then.
Okay, that's okay. That's good enough. So you in case if say you just contact after a while Hemant, department JA. If he updates you on that, it is fine. Otherwise, you can contact the faculty and convey it. Then they will change. They will confirm you on what you are put with. So if it is departmental activity, no need to bother right now itself. Subsequently, whenever the need occurs or the work comes, you will be called for.
No, sir. I think my message. I think it wasn't clear. I think because I'm saying that I was allocated a T duty earlier for some lab. But I turned it down because it was clashing my.
No. Recently, now there is a sheet that is sent, right? So
yes, sir. In that, my name is not mentioned. That is what I was.
No. Your name will be there. Against your name, just see back in courses. Your name is not there. There is another sheet where his student name is written.
In the list of students, his name is there.
Yeah, it's there. In the list of students, you are written as against you. There is a departmental activity written. So you can check that, and that means that you will be called departmental one.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. So anything else? Anyway, keep going. So next week, what I will do is anyway this time. Still, I could not bring some of the discussion on mini projects. So probably next week, I will bring the discussion on mini projects. What I would suggest is anyway, you can get started with some of the aspects that are necessary to do mini projects for the lab. I would suggest that even don't wait for me. So as I discussed in the initial class, so you can start doing mini projects with different, say speaker recognition, for example. I will give probably through mail some of the easy tasks which you can do with signal processing itself, most of the work, and some small like after doing a reasonable signal processing, finally if you need to take a decision, maybe some classifier may be needed. That's that you can use for now as a black box. Don't bother about it. But try to give a list of mini projects which are reachable to you, or you can easily or start with. Okay, so I would recommend those who are eager to start it, or those who want to do also some reasonable mini project to start with. Because finally, once you start the like the course, all assignments, and then midterm and all comes, you will be too busy and you can't even look at the mini projects and the corresponding credit, like whatever you are supposed to do, you will not be able to do at that time. So I will give some list of mini projects topics. So I request Bhargav to take lead on that to make it materialize on this. Survardhan also can help. Yeah. Thanks then. Bye. Anything else? Okay, bye.